everyone, and welcome to an XTIVIA live session, delivering the information you need for the business future you want. We're sharing our knowledge to help your business thrive in today's new normal. My name is Alex Killian, and I'm the video producer here on XTIVIA's marketing team. Before we dive into our live session this morning, I just want to tell you a little bit about XTIVIA. So for nearly 3 decades, we've been providing a variety of expert IT services to hundreds of businesses in countless industries. If you can imagine the business outcome, XTIVIA can create it with technology. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to some of our CRM experts, Zach Bodine and Mike Ahrenhoersterbaeumer.
Thank you, Alex.
Thanks, Alex.
So my name is Zach Bodine. I'm the leader of our CRM practice here at XTIVIA. And joining me today is Mike Ahrenhoersterbaeumer, who is our lead sales consultant for the CRM practice and one of our sales leaders here at XTIVIA. So Mike and I have, sorry, Mike.
I was just saying thank you for having me.
No, thanks for joining. So Mike and I have lots of unique experiences with implementing Salesforce over the years. And aiding customers with their implementations, their enhancements. And we just kind of have a rich history of just being there, kind of almost when Salesforce first came about. So we really wanted we've been talking about doing something like this for a while, and we wanted to have a video where we can kind of share our knowledge of the background and evolution of Salesforce for those of you that might not be aware of it. So Salesforce, ticker symbol CRM, publicly traded company, and it has been in existence since about the year 2000. Mike, when did you first start working with Salesforce?
So I've been working with the organization or in the business world for almost 10 years now. I joined this company in June of 2011, and we really had, at the time, been focused on a different CRM product. It was an older CRM product. It still had a pretty good footprint in the marketplace. But really I would say shortly thereafter was my first foray into Salesforce. So I know it's been around a lot longer than that, obviously, but I was still in school when that all started. So, so I would say my really first foray into seeing Salesforce and hearing about Salesforce probably about 9 or 10 years ago.
And similar to that, I was in school, college when it was being finished, being developed, and even when it was launched. And about 2006 was when I first encountered it, which is about 6 years after launch, but really was like right still at the forefront of when it was becoming more mainstream and growing. And so that was still kind of the not infant years, but adolescent years of Salesforce. So a lot of exciting things were happening at that time. Okay, so just talking about Salesforce in general, Mike, you want to fill people in general before we start to talk about Salesforce of what CRM is?
Yeah, I mean, so honestly, it's a lot of things. The term CRM stands for Customer Relationship Management. So it is a software solution that can help any business, manage their clients, manage the sales cycle, manage new leads coming in, track all their activities, who's talking to who, what are they talking to them about, trying to bring more business across the goal line, right, to help grow the business that you work for. And I would say that right there is really kind of where it started. As Zach and I are going to kind of cover today, it's really branched off over the last 15, 20 years. It really, like I said, started as a client management and sales pipeline management tool. And has really evolved over the years into, as we're going to talk about, service management, marketing, all different types. And really now it can kind of help enhance every aspect of any company's organization. So
great. Okay, so I'm going to start by giving a brief history of Salesforce. So Mark Benioff was a senior VP at Oracle, a famous software, highly successful software company. And right around the dot-com boom, towards the end of it in 1999, he broke away from Oracle and decided to start developing, along with a team of 3 or 4 guys, Parker Harris being one of them. They started developing their own CRM solution, and they were working out of Mark's downtown apartment in San Francisco. They were there for about a year building it out. They survived the .com bubble bursting in 2000, and then successfully launched it as a product publicly in 2000. And when they launched, they marketed their product as 100% cloud-based CRM solution. And in doing so, they coined it as anti-software solution, with big signs that had a huge software guy with a red circle and a slash across the middle, saying anti-software. And so that was sort of the advent of cloud CRM, and they saw that as the future of business. So soon after that, several companies immediately flocked to Salesforce. Their simplified cloud-based solution was really accessible from any device now, with a username and a password. This alleviated companies from having to manage ongoing software updates and releases that were, commonplace at the time. Those updates were now managed entirely by Salesforce on, annual releases. I think they do 3 releases a year now, not so much then. And they would do these releases with minimal to no interference at all to existing functionality that businesses were using. So they didn't have to pay, IT countless hours of time to push these updates into Salesforce. It was all handled automatically by Salesforce. And then they also, because this was all cloud, this is all managed on servers owned by Salesforce. So businesses did not have to pay for their own IT server to house this technology, this software, and that was a major cost save for those organizations. And then one other addition, from my experience, I worked at Wells Fargo Advisors, large financial services company, and this is a huge sales organization with a large IT department. And that meant that anytime you wanted to purchase some sort of software solution, historically, there was lots of red tape in an organization like Wells Fargo Advisors for implementing that software. It had to pass through IT, compliance, and it was very time consuming, and IT wanted to be heavily involved in that project. And it would basically delay the launch of the application for the business unit, in this case, the sales department that just wanted to start leveraging this technology. So the great thing about Salesforce is a lot of these businesses felt they could kind of circumvent, a big corporate IT department and implement it themselves with maybe hiring a couple consultants, leveraging someone with some computer programming experience, or a very analytical person who's just like an Excel wizard. And at the time, that person could, with some education, be able to implement Salesforce for that team. So this was kind of transformative in that sense, and that this is one of the first technologies that could be leveraged as a software solution, even though it's anti-software, that didn't require a heavy lift from IT just to get it off the ground at that time. Since it's evolved, and there are a lot of nuances to it, and so of course, it does take more help to get it up and running. So, after that launch, they experienced rapid growth. They expanded globally. Pre-2005, they had $50 million in revenue within like a couple of years of launching. And then that's when they launched in 2003, their first of many iconic Dreamforce conferences. I wasn't, again, there until 2006, so I missed a few of those first Dreamforces, but I did attend my fair share once they came to pass. So I know they also now offer the Connections Conference, which is more of a local flavor. I'm just going to share a quick story about Dreamforce. Dreamforce is this large conference. It caters to the masses, high-end musical performers. I think the first year I was there, Judas Priest performed, as did Stevie Wonder. I think Stevie Wonder has performed almost at every Dreamforce in some capacity. and it was just incredible experience. They had vendors from all over the world that would set up in this area that you could walk through, and there's a name for it that's escaping me. It'll come to me. And you could literally just learn all these businesses that existed to piggyback off the success of Salesforce. And this was still even very young at that time for Dreamforce. I attended with Enterprise Fleet Management, a sister company of Enterprise Rent-A-Car, sometime in the late 2000s, early or 2011, sorry. And they had this great car show where they were serving oysters, and it was very elegant experience, but they also had great classes where you could sit down, learn from experts, and just also have their partners who were businesses share their successful stories and how they implemented Salesforce successfully for their businesses. So the really cool experience. Mike, I know you attended Connections. Is there anything that you recall from your Connections conference?
Yeah, so I've attended a few of the Connections conferences in the Midwest Dreamin' Show. So we're I don't know if Zach mentioned, we're out of St. Louis, Missouri. So we're in the Midwest, and that's something that Salesforce has done recently as well, is tried to, because Dreamforce, like Zach talked about, I think the last one that they had before the pandemic hit, there was over 200,000 attendees. It's crazy, yeah. Right? So they also do more regionally based shows, which I myself enjoy. I think it's a little bit easier to kind of navigate and find what you want to look at, go to the classes you want to go to. And I mean, really, the things I enjoyed, some of our clients have pretty complex needs, right, that are ever growing. And so a lot of times that may require custom development, which can be a big undertaking both for us and the client, right, from a financial aspect and time too. And, I know, Zach, I think you're going to talk about like the app exchange here in a little bit, but one of the cool things about like the Connection show is it's very easy to go to different booths and see all these apps that are just published out on this app exchange that can really be more of a plug and play and a big time saver for our clients. So really, I found that very enjoyable, very easy to access. And then one of the other things there's millions of companies on, I don't know about millions, but tons of companies across the globe on Salesforce, right, with all different types of use cases. And so they always, advertise, and a lot of these little seminars are companies from all over the world, all shapes and sizes, talking about their experience with Salesforce and how they built it out. And I always find that very interesting. One, because it's just cool hearing these companies in different industries, how they've taken to Salesforce and how it's really, helped their company grow, streamline processes and things of that nature. But also it gives us ideas too, right? I mean, things that these clients are doing. We may have customers in similar industries that are looking to try to do similar things. And, I feel like we have a very smart, creative team that comes up with great ideas all the time, but it's always great to hear from outside as well. And so being able to sit in and listen to those customer seminars, I always find very, very helpful. So, those are just a couple of the things. And then being able to speak with the team members at Salesforce directly, obviously, is great as well. But yeah, I always find it very enjoyable. I think the regionally based ones are a little bit, like I said, easier to navigate. You can find what you're wanting to go to a little bit quicker. So yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's great. So one of the things that you mentioned about the App Exchange. So I was doing just some research for this for today's meeting on the Salesforce App Exchange, kind of trying to find out when that first came about. And it actually was launched in 2005, and I had just assumed that was Mark Benioff and his team launching that as sort of a copycat of the Apple App Store. But what I found actually was that Mark Benioff, with some influence from Steve Jobs, who was a confidant of his, Jobs said, you should pursue an ecosystem approach. So in 2005 is when Mark Benioff and Salesforce actually launched their App Exchange. And that was the first, thing of its kind in that regard, where all these businesses could come together and share their business solutions in one app exchange or ecosystem. And And so Apple's App Store didn't actually come into being until 2008, 3 years after Salesforce's App Exchange. And that was one of the things that really like transformed Salesforce, because now you're encouraging all these businesses to develop products that plug in and integrate directly with your business. And, you know, Salesforce is this great company, but they're even limited in like what they can focus on delivering to their customers. So a lot of the needs that businesses have might not be something that's going to be released by Salesforce as an enhancement in the near future. So they could go on the App Exchange and find this product solution for their specific business needs, install it directly into Salesforce, you know, hire a consulting firm to do some configuration, and then they're up and running. So that was really transformative. And another kind of crazy thing I learned about that, Mike, is Salesforce was kind of in between names of whether or not they were going to call it the App Exchange or the App Store. And so they basically bought the naming rights to both. And then in 2008, when Steve Jobs launched Apple's App Store, Benioff was like, okay, you know what? You helped influence me to create the App Exchange. So I'm not going to make you buy those naming rights from me. I'll just kind of give them to you as a thank you. So I kind of thought that was a crazy story when I researched that.
Yeah, it's funny. I just would always have assumed the App Store was created first too.
Yeah, right. Because like I guess everyone knows Steve Jobs is the iconic, you know, IT mogul. So, you know, you talked about the expo, walking around. I totally agree. That was one of the best ways that I experienced all these new ways that businesses could use Salesforce. Because there is, you know, there's a lot you can learn within Salesforce's trailhead, or just researching Salesforce in general and what the capabilities are of that tool. But then when you walk through that expo at one of these conferences, whether it's Dreamforce or Connections, and you see all those businesses lined up with all of their products that integrate with Salesforce, and you can walk up to write somebody, they could do a demo, show you their product case. I think I got like a lot of the ideas that I got about how to help the companies that I was working for at the time. I got those ideas just by walking through that expo. And it might not have been that like we ended up buying that product from the App Exchange, but we found a way to like customize Salesforce to deliver some nuance of that product. And it just really like was good for like the creative portion of working in Salesforce. Okay, so it's kind of moving along. Another incredible aspect of Salesforce is how adaptable it is and across every industry. It's pretty much industry agnostic. And it was even that way when it was like in the mid 2000s. I mean, I was introduced to it for a financial services firm that didn't initially even use it for financial. They used it for recruiting. So now it's, you know, you're selling, but they're using it as recruiting, adapting the organization to their business. Then Wells Fargo advisors started using it for financial data and storing, you know, activities of their financial advisors. Enterprise used it for business to business selling in a traditional sense for their fleet management business. And then I worked for a healthcare company who used it for both for healthcare purposes as well as for staffing as well. So there's like, you know, the three companies I worked for prior to coming to XTIVIA were across 3 different industries, and they all seamlessly basically started using Salesforce. I just thought that was really interesting, Mike, and how like, you know, there's all these products that were out there at the time that were specific to an industry. And Salesforce just said, okay, we're not going to be industry specific. We're going to be every industry, and just make this tool super flexible to be able to cater to whatever business wanted to use it.
Well, it's adaptable, right? I mean, that's the main word. You know, it's got the whatever, you know, template, I guess, if you want to call it that. You know, it comes with the standard CRM fields and tables and things like that that any company can use. But there's things in there that a company may not need that with Salesforce, it's so easy to remove and hide those things. And like you said, a lot of it's a very declarative model. So to change Salesforce, it's more point and click, drag and drop than getting into the code. Now, there's always a need for that, as you'll talk about a little bit later, but to even just make a lot of the basic changes, simple changes, you don't need to do that, right? So yeah, I mean, that's one of like the real big benefits of Salesforce. It's one of the reasons they charge a premium, I would say, is because it is that adaptable and that configurable, right? It can be as customizable. You can do whatever the heck you want with Salesforce if you got the time and the money. But it's so easy to configure and just make basic changes, streamline processes that it can really, it can compete, or at the time, we'll get into how it's gotten industry specific, but at the time, that's how it can best compete with those, industry focused verticals.
Yeah. And we can get into that now. So yeah, while Salesforce, first was this just simple sales solution, over the course of time, consulting firms such as XTIVIA, Deloitte's, Accenture's were hired to build, a big company would hire them to build Salesforce out in a model for their company that was sort of industry specific for their company. So this is before Salesforce had all these other industry clouds. So a company would buy Salesforce licenses for their user base, and then they would hire a consulting firm to say, turn Salesforce into financial services tracking for our business. So we want all of our accounts, both individual accounts and household accounts. We want all of the different types of accounts that they could have with our financial institution trackable in Salesforce, whether it was brokerage or banking or insurance, whatever type of account. We want all the information about these customers accessible within here. And so they're very unique components that are being customized in Salesforce specific to financial services. The same thing happened with healthcare and manufacturing as well. So after these customizations were done by consulting firms for specific businesses, Salesforce said, okay, we kind of are seeing this trend. So maybe we can help these businesses out in these different industries, sell them Salesforce, but give them a Salesforce that's already customized to their industry. And that's when they got into their industry cloud products. And just some examples of that, Mike, I know you've worked with some of these and some of our customers, as have I. Health Cloud, Financial Services Cloud, and Manufacturing Cloud are probably the three most common that we come across with our customers.
And I would throw nonprofit in there too. That's something that I don't think we really were planning on talking about, but Salesforce is huge into philanthropy, right? And raising money for good causes. And so like the nonprofit cloud, for instance, like I mentioned, Salesforce sells at a premium, right? But like Zach mentioned, you're getting a tool that's, the ongoing maintenance of it is very minimal, right? You don't have to worry about upgrades. You don't have to, be concerned about any of those things, bringing in IT for a lot of those things that you would for all the on-premise solutions that they're now starting to fade, I would say, but they're still out there. But nonprofit is a big one. I mean, nonprofit, they offer 10 free licenses for if you're a 501c3, I think, which is really cool. And the same thing for, with nonprofits, if you want to do donation tracking, fundraising, whatever it might be, they have a tool out there to help those nonprofits grow their donations, grow their organization to make a bigger positive impact on society. So I just think that's a pretty cool thing that Salesforce focuses on, but that's, another one of those industry specific clouds that we have pretty vast experience with and come across with quite often. So
yeah, they are definitely a very philanthropic company. And Mark's always been really big about that from the get-go. And I think that's really drawn people to them, and they're forward thinking and certainly, a very innovative company in a lot of ways, which I know anytime I do consulting engagements with organizations, I always share that they were basically dubbed by Forbes like 5 years in a row, the most innovative company in the world. on their innovation list that they release every year. So, you know, they're no different with that, with the causes that they support and how they do it. So I think it's a good point. So the great thing about all those different industry verticals is it allowed these businesses, right, to have this pre-customized Salesforce environment that they can purchase, immediately plug into. Now they'll still need some customizations and data migration to get up and running, and maybe integration to other like system applications. But a lot of the Salesforce customization is already complete, which that's awesome for these businesses. It sucks for consulting firms like us, you know, a little bit, because we used to do that, but it really is like a great asset to these businesses to have those industry vertical options for those clouds. So just moving on to some other items of how Salesforce has evolved over the years. Salesforce initially was just called Salesforce, salesforce.com. Then they dropped the .com. Then they introduced a new interface for Salesforce called Salesforce Lightning. And the original interface for Salesforce became Salesforce Classic. So you might have been hearing lately a lot about Lightning or migration from Classic to Lightning. Classic, you know, the ability to use Classic isn't going away anytime soon, but there's really just no more future updates being done to support it. All of the enhancements that Salesforce are doing now, any new functionality is all being targeted for Lightning. And so they've been making this push the last 3-4 years to get customers to transition over. And I know we still get a lot of customers that reach out to us, you know, asking them to do that migration for them. And so, Mike, can you talk a little bit about like maybe what the influence was of why they introduced this new interface?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Salesforce Classic, I think it's a little bit dated looking, right? We're in 2021 now. I don't know what they first introduced Lightning, maybe 3 or 4 years ago at this point, maybe even a bit longer.
I don't know, Mike, we've seen a lot of Salesforce environments. Not Classic is still pretty decent compared to some of the other ones.
No, don't get me wrong. It certainly is. But when you look at Lightning, it does look very dated, right?
Sure.
And I think one of the big proponents of going that Lightning is we're becoming, well, I don't know, I guess take away the last about a year now, we're becoming more and more of a society on the move, on the go, not necessarily stationary in front of our computers all the time. So with the advent of the smartphone and, you know, tablet technology and things like that, those screens are a lot different sizes. They're all touchscreen, right? So moving towards that Lightning interface, if you look at Lightning and look at, you know, Salesforce on your phone or Salesforce on your tablet, it's going to look very, very similar now, right? So they tried to get that more unified interface to make it easier for their customers. So doesn't matter if you're on your phone, if you're on your tablet, if you're on your desktop or laptop, you'll notice the Lightning interface is much more similar to what you see on the mobile devices now, right? So it makes it easier from a training aspect, an onboarding aspect, and just usability aspect of Salesforce, because now no matter the device you're on, obviously the screen size is going to differ and how much is showing on the screen, but still the usability and the interface is pretty much the same across the board. And I think that was really their kind of main proponent of moving away from Classic and going to Lightning.
Right. Okay, just some other ways to talk about how they've evolved. So when they initially launched, they had a core sales focus, hence the name Salesforce. And so over time, they wanted to cater to service. So they just rebranded Salesforce. They didn't rebrand it, but they created a separate product within Salesforce called Sales Cloud. So the traditional Salesforce implementation is a business purchasing Sales Cloud, and then they get the products, the components that are part of that. And Mike, I know you're on the sales side. So like, what are some of the features of Sales Cloud that like you enjoy the most?
Well, yeah, I mean, it gives me the ability to always know exactly what's going on with my clients, with my prospects, where things at with, you know, our marketing team's done a great job and has, you know, hooked up our website directly into Salesforce. So, you know, whenever we get leads from the website, they're automatically in Salesforce and assigned to me, right? So I know I need to stop, drop, and dial and reach out to those people as soon as it comes in. And then I can properly track it all the way through the funnel from a lead to a sales opportunity that's in my pipeline, manage my proposals in there, my documents, all of my interactions with those prospects and customers until I, bring that opportunity to a close. And then it gives me the ability to, again, manage all my data in there. So I know what's going on with them. Is there maybe upsell opportunities? Are my clients happy? What's going on within the organization? Is there other things that we can be doing for them, right? So that's what I love about Sales Cloud. Now, I think you're going to go to Service Cloud next, because there's Service Cloud, there's Pardot Marketing Cloud, Commerce Cloud. There's all different clouds focused on different business processes. Like Service Cloud, for instance, is awesome because I'm on the sales side, so I'm not really handling like customer cases when they call in with issues or questions or requests. But Salesforce bolts right into Service Cloud bolts right into Sales Cloud, as you're going to talk about. So now, before I'm going to meet with the client or jump on the phone with them, not only do I know what's going on from a communication standpoint and a sales standpoint, but now I can actually see all the issues that they've been calling in with or questions that they've had and how our support teams handled those things. So when I'm going into a meeting, I won't be blindsided. I know I have a 360-degree view on my customer, because now it's not just sales, but also the back-end service side of the house. I can manage and see all that information in there as well.
Yeah, and I think that's such a critical part of Service Cloud, because a lot of organizations say, all right, Salesforce I'm going to use it for sales, but for my service team, I can use a different product. It doesn't need to be tied to Salesforce. It might be less expensive, but I just need the service team to manage service tickets over here and the salespeople to work on sales over here. And they kind of miss the boat in the value, the added benefit that both service and sales have by having all of that information in one location. And I mean, it really is invaluable to have that 360 view of the customer. It also, there's more automation you can put in place when those two are intertwined. So like when an opportunity gets closed won, you could immediately create a service case for someone to do some sort of onboarding engagement for that that customer. So there's additional automation that customers lose out on when they don't have those two in the same instance as well. So I think that, especially with the reporting and dashboard capability in Salesforce, you could have a dashboard that gives you that full view of everything you could want to know about your customer.
Yeah. And I think automation, you brought that up, it's very key, right? Pardot and Marketing Cloud, those are two marketing products that Salesforce has. I won't go into the differences of those. But, there's a lot of automation tied into that, and you can build out drip campaigns, tie it into your social media sites, right? So you're doing social listening and things like that and tracking what's going on, who's talking about us if you're a big corporation or whatever it might be, right? And building automation around that. But even just with like Sales and Service Cloud, you want the system to work for you. You don't want to have to work for the system. You don't want it to be a hindrance on your job. You want it to be a help on your job. You don't want to have to be spending endless hours entering data, tracking information. You want it to help you do that, right? So building in automation workflows in terms of, you just mentioned one example, Zach, of like when an opportunity is closed won, or maybe an opportunity has been stuck in the same stage for 30 days. I want a notification to go out to my manager, to the sales rep, to whoever it is. Maybe I want something to get automatically emailed to the customer themselves. Automatic updates in the system. All of these things are things that can happen in Salesforce to make it a more automated, streamlined system, so it's not as much manual, right? So again, you want it to be a help when you're selling or servicing your customers. You don't want it to be a hindrance and bog down your day. So
totally. So coming back to Service Cloud real quick, there's a few things I want to touch on that, Mike. So Sales Cloud focused on sales. That's kind of why they rebranded it, because they wanted to introduce Service Cloud and they needed to have those two separate naming conventions to share with customers. So Service Cloud has all this great functionality. It typically comes with a self-service community where You can post knowledge articles to your customers when they come and visit your community, log in. They can see a dashboard of what's going on with their account in your organization. And your service reps can publish knowledge articles. So if they get a case and it's a frequent case that they get, they can post their comment as like a frequently asked question knowledge article, and then post that to the self-service site. So now you can kind of do some call deflection. So if you're a large organization, you're getting lots and lots of calls, and maybe you only have so many agents inside your company who are answering these calls, that knowledge base on that self-service can really answer a lot of those questions for customers. And I know we all experience this when we go to websites now. Lots of times we just want to get a hold of someone and call somebody, but the Salesforce has basically made this so simple for companies to understand that it's really easy for them to implement with partners and have it up and running very, very quickly. Other aspects include omni-channel, where they can route cases to the appropriate agent based upon that agent's availability, or based upon their skill set. So omni-channel is a great tool and for routing, and I know we implemented it recently for a customer of ours and they love it. It really also prevents agents from poaching cases that they think might be more simple to solve than the tougher ones, and more evenly distributes that amongst your team members. And then there's another great feature in Service Cloud called like entitlements and milestones. So a lot of organizations will have special service level agreements with specific customers where we promise for you that we're going to respond to every case request within 24 hours, and then we'll have it resolved within 48 hours. And so these entitlements and milestones will alert management when you're getting close to that marker and you haven't resolved or met your SLA agreements, to make sure that you're staying in line with that. So and it really allows you to have those customizations where you have different entitlements and milestones for different customers. So a really nifty feature of Service Cloud. So touching on, we talked about Pardot, which is primarily email marketing and email marketing automation for your business. Marketing Cloud, you talked about too, which is where you're building these sophisticated customer journeys that you can take your customers on when they're looking to purchase something. And if they clicked on this item on your website to purchase, like on a B2C type business, and they're interested in it, then you might know that there's 3 other items that they could be interested in. Well, so you can send them an email a day later automatically with those items that they might be interested in. Marketing Cloud has made leaps and bounds in the marketing space, and they've really hit a home run with that product, and how it integrates with Social Studio and Commerce Cloud as well, for bringing people to your website to purchase those products. So really a big evolutionary push in the marketing space that Salesforce has made over the last decade with all those products. So I know we're been ranting for a while here, Mike. We can wrap it up. The one thing I just want to talk about, I know you talked about automation, and this might be boring to some people, but I think we've seen it with businesses, how much it can streamline processes and really alleviate bottlenecks in organizations and make your employees happier too, because they can do more fruitful things for your customers and less mundane tasks, which makes your employees happy, makes your business operate more efficiently. And Salesforce has been really evolutionary in their automation engine since they've launched. So initially they still have this functionality, but they have workflow rules where you can do field updates, email alerts automatically, and log activity automatically. They also had visual force pages, which is if you wanted to have like a customized interface in Salesforce for an agent that had really just the fields you wanted them to do, they would do visual force. That was a Salesforce Classic feature. And more recently, they've moved to Process Builder because it's more robust than workflow rules and really flows. And just to simplify this for people that might not be overly technical, these Salesforce flows is almost everyone has some familiarity with the company TurboTax. And this is not, I don't think Salesforce works in conjunction with TurboTax. Maybe they do, I'm not aware of that. But the TurboTax experience of how simple they've made doing your taxes. So instead of going to an IRS form and aimlessly wandering around where you're supposed to input what value where, which is sometimes, being on a case record, an opportunity record, or an account screen in Salesforce can feel like for your users. It can be overwhelming, where they're supposed to enter data, where in the system. Salesforce has allowed developers and partners to create these flows in Salesforce where it's a step-by-step process for your employees to walk through to complete that process. And it only asks them for specific questions related to where they are in the process. And I think this is really the future for business, Mike, is these flows for both sales and service.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Again, it's automation, AI, all of that's becoming more and more popular and more helpful in this day and age. So, I mean, yeah, without question, the flows are very becoming a more popular tool and very powerful solution that can help make everybody's lives easier when you're, managing through the system on a day-to-day basis.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, and the last thing I just want to say is, Salesforce is, we've talked about, our experiences with these large institutions, but I think what makes also Salesforce so unique is, they sell based on licenses. So whether you're a very large business entity or you're a really small company, there's a fit with Salesforce for your business. And, we've seen it with all the different customers of the sizes that we have, Mike. We've had businesses with 5 people that want to leverage Salesforce, and we have businesses with thousands of users. It really is like, I think, and if you ask Salesforce, I know they posted some statistics on this not too far ago, long ago, whenever they look at their user base of all the Salesforce businesses that comprise their user base, small businesses make up almost, if not more than 50% of the Salesforce user base. And I think that's just like a testament to how much adaptable they've made their product for companies.
Yeah, for sure. Because I think some small businesses look at it as maybe it's overkill. They don't need Salesforce. That's too much for me. But it really is a system that where you said we have somebody as small as 5 users. I think we actually have a single user customer, right? And so but that's the point. I mean, it can be as easy and as, limited as you want it to be to, manage every aspect of your business if you want it to. So it's a great tool for both small and enterprise, corporations.
Okay. Well, that's it. Thank you everybody for your time today. We appreciate if you made it this far. I know we covered a lot. So we're looking forward to hearing from you, and any questions you have, please feel free to reach out to Mike and I. We'll be happy to help you.
Thanks so much, Mike and Zach. Just as a reminder for everybody watching, this webinar and all of our other webinars will be available in our on-demand webinar library on our website. So make sure to go check out the rest of those. And we'll be having another live session webinar the 4th Thursday of every month. So come on back and check out all we have to offer. And thanks again, Mike and Zach. That was really interesting to listen to.